Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins the show. We're going to talk about Oklahoma City beating the Denver Nuggets to go to the Western Conference Finals. We'll talk about the Western Conference Finals in a preview format. And then finally, we're going to answer your NBA draft questions that you sent us. Please keep sending them during the show. We will absolutely answer them if you send them. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? Listen, I don't really want to talk about the NBA or NBA draft or anything right now. I was walking my yard about 10 minutes ago. Somebody was visiting my neighbors, and this guy calls me over. He goes, "Hey, man, your lawn is beautiful. How do you get your lawn to look like that?" And my night was done. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm chilling. You can take the episode from there. I'm going to take that compliment, the ultimate compliment I can get on a Sunday afternoon, and just live my life.
Yeah, look, you know, the lawn stuff is important to you. The golf stuff is what's important to me. At some point today, I will probably try and go over to the simulator that's like 5 minutes from my house and go hit golf balls and get my Scotty Scheffler on a little bit. Scotty Scheffler won the PGA championship by, I think, 5 strokes today. Just ridiculous. He is the best ball striker I think I have. Like, honestly, it's like Tiger Woods. Like, I will hear out. Like, he's not nearly as good of like a putter and like doesn't hit the ball as far, but like just pure like ball striking, especially like irons. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. It's crazy. Absolutely nuts.
Golf was on the TV at our house. I have no idea what was going on. I was chilling. Also, Sam, I went and jumped on the tramp with Royce, my 5-year-old, and then the 3-year-old twins from across the street, playing Crack the Egg. Are you familiar with Crack the Egg on a trampoline?
No.
Okay, so you get.
I don't have kids, Bryce.
Okay, fair enough. You were once a kid, though. You ball up with your knees to your chest and then your arms around your legs, and then it's the job of the other people to try to crack you, to like bounce you hard enough that you open up, that you let go of your grip. So I was playing that. Point of the story was I lasted like 2.5 minutes jumping on the tramp and was exhausted. Like, I am so old, and I work out every day. I go on walks every day, but jumping on a tramp absolutely destroyed me. And I lasted about 2.5 minutes, and they could have gone for an hour. And I was like, no, guys, I'm out. You got to entertain yourselves the rest of this.
That's so funny. Before we get started here, shout out to Brian Garces for the super chat. Thanks for the glut of recent content, guys. Been re-listening to the Best Value Contracts episode and spending an inordinate amount of time brainstorming if the 10 dudes could form a functional team, the Best Value All-Stars. Shout out to Brian for coming through with the super chat. You rock, man. So we're going to talk about the OKC Thunder and Denver Nuggets to start here. The Oklahoma City Thunder win this game 125-93. They move on to the Western Conference Finals. This was a game 7 in Oklahoma City after, I mean, truly just like kind of an ugly game 6 that we didn't really talk about. I don't know that I need to talk a lot about it, given that we know the results of game 7 here. But just an unbelievable showing, I think, from Oklahoma City here in terms of defensive pressure. That's really what it came down to for me. And really, I think where we have to start is with Alex Caruso.
Yes.
Caruso, I'm not sure I've seen a game this year where a player who touches the ball as like little, I guess, or as often as Caruso, as little as he does, completely like changed everything that a team was doing on both ends of the court. So like, on the defensive end, obviously, he comes in, he starts guarding, Christian Brown and Jamal Murray at first, and then he switches onto Jokic and completely changes what they're doing against Jokic, right? Like, he is fronting Jokic, he's stopping entry passes, and then he's just playing straight up against him in different ball screen actions that he and Jamal Murray are running. They're not switching as often. They want Caruso on him. just completely got into Jokic's space and took him out of the game, frankly. I thought in the first 7 or so minutes, Jokic like really kind of dominated that game to me. Like he was playing incredibly well, passing, playmaking, all of it. And then Caruso comes in, forces a travel on Christian Brown at the 5:07 mark of the first quarter. And then he starts guarding Jokic. Like it was unbelievable. And then on offense, like the way that he would flash to the middle, the way that he would find guys in the middle, like the way that he made sure that they were getting inside out against Denver's zone. It was so awesome. It was as impressive a game as I've seen from a guy that touched the ball that little.
It's really impressive that not only the versatility of the matchups, right? Like you just said, Jamal Murray, Christian Brown, Nikola Jokic, not only is he at his size able to go guard a bigger player, it's the best bigger player in the world, Sam. It's Nikola Jokic. And I also like Caruso deserves all the credit, but it is also the swarming aspect of the Thunder defense that allows this to be successful. But he was at the heart of it today. They showed Presti at one point, and I just thought to myself, like, I wonder what it's like to be Sam Presti. You make that trade of Josh Giddey for Caruso. Giddey puts up crazy numbers this year, and I'm not trying to take shots at Josh Giddey whatsoever, but you have to be sitting there if you're Sam Presti going, I was right. This is why I did it. This is why I made the move. It worked out, in a huge moment, game 7 in the second round of the playoffs. And Caruso, I mean, I don't know if he was do we call him the best player on the floor today? The most important player on the floor? Like, he's the one that stood out the most to me for the Oklahoma City Thunder in this game. And what he did also, and this is kind of what you alluded to offensively, he allowed them to go to one big, right? Like they could now just put him on Jokic and still have Chet or Hartenstein behind him whenever Jokic attacked or whatever. So he really unlocked so much with his versatility, and just a really, really impressive performance from him. The first 7 minutes of this game made me nervous for OKC. Like you said, it seemed like Jokic was in a flow, in a rhythm. Christian Brown was playing awesome. It looked like Gordon was at least going to be able to hold up. I was interested to see if he would like play 2 minutes and be like, no, I can't do it. He was able to hold up. He was obviously limited. And OKC looked like they were struggling offensively. Guys were turning down shots, guys were missing shots, and then they eventually found their flow and their rhythm. And so Caruso was at the center of all of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you first and foremost on that. Caruso, I think, just changed the tenor of the game. There were 2 moments though from Denver that or 2 things really, not really 2 moments, that kind of changed things. So first, David Adelman at the start of the second quarter runs out the non-Jokic, non-Murray lineup.
Okay, yeah.
And
can you explain this to me? Are you about to explain this to me? Because I don't understand.
No, I can't. I think Adelman has done an amazing, unbelievable job in this series.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
he should have the job tomorrow, right? He should have the job tomorrow.
He should absolutely have that job tomorrow. I think the way that they made OKC work, particularly on the offensive end, by going to that 2-3 zone, by mixing and matching different zone looks, by playing different styles of man defense, by utilizing different help strategies throughout when they were in man. I think David Adelman should absolutely have that job tomorrow. If he has that job tomorrow, please, for the love of God, never run out a non-Jokic, non-Murray lineup again, because it was terrible. Like, it was truly awful. They go on an 8-0 run immediately, and Adelman just immediately has to go back to Jokic and Murray to stop the bleeding. That was a 13-0 run in total because the Thunder scored the last 5 of the first quarter as well. And then just like the end of the second quarter run. It feels like to me that's the moment where I felt like Denver die a little bit in terms of just energy. Not even because of like mental disengagement. It felt more because of they just ran out of juice and they ran out of steam on some level. A tough 7-game series against the Clippers, followed by now a tough 7-game series against the Thunder, where the Thunder, obviously had a 4-game series and they had a huge rest coming into this series. And they go a little bit deeper than the Nuggets do. This is a huge moment here where you get all of the steals and pick sixes for OKC, where Jalen Williams had 17 at halftime, and it felt like 4 of those buckets came just on pick sixes going the other way. And he was fantastic. I thought Caruso, obviously, as we've talked about, was fantastic on defense. Just a fantastic overall performance defensively from OKC. That brought the crowd into it, and that kind of did everything that they needed.
Yeah, just to finish off on the non-Jokic, non-Murray minutes, I just didn't understand it. Like, I don't understand how that happens, where there is a miscalculation, or, did one of those guys think they were going to be able to play more minutes and ask to be sub, but it just can't happen. And on the other way, OKC actually went to a non-big lineup semi-late in the second quarter that I did not like. And I thought that Dagnall did a nice job recognizing that it was not working. He gets a timeout after Jamal Murray makes a 17-foot pull-up jumper and Denver's down 1. He gets Chet back into the game now, and then they close out the half like on an 18-5 run or something like that. So he recognized it very, very quickly. And I thought one of the bigger plays in the game was, I always look for these like momentum sequences. During the middle of that run, there was a steal, and then Christian Brown hustled from behind and stole it right back for Denver. And it's like, okay, they're going to stop this. They're going to go back the other way. Peyton Watson misses a layup. Chet tips it out. I think it was J-Dub got one of those out, kick out run, transition dunks. And
he just grabbed and went.
Yeah.
Like that was one where he's like grabbed the ball off the rim and just sprinted the other way.
Went the other way, timeout Denver. And then I thought, well, it is important. I think sometimes the things that are undervalued is, okay, we've gone on a 7-0 run. The other team calls a timeout. What happens after timeout? Do we let them push 7-0 right back at us? OKC was able to answer. Jokic got a bucket. SGA answered with the 3. Williams with one of those pick 6 steals. Caruso steal. SGA answers. Jokic gets a floater. Williams answers. And they just answered and extended it after timeout. And then they answered and extended to start the second half as well. And that ended up being the game. And that's one of my biggest takeaways. Some of my biggest takeaways from the playoffs so far. Turnovers, offensive rebounding. We kind of know those things. These momentum sequences, end of quarters, start of quarters, I feel like have decided so many games or been a huge storyline of so many of these games in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the 3 today for Oklahoma City in general were J-Dub goes for 24 and 7 assists with only 1 turnover, 10 of 17 from the field, was great on defense, was super switchable, had a couple of moments on Jokic where I thought he was really good. And then also obviously all of the run outs, he made a couple of big shots. 2 threes, had like a nice little mid-range jumper early in the second half that got going a little bit. He only ends up having to play 33 minutes. Shea obviously goes for 35 on 19 field goal attempts, which is absurd. Fantastic. And then Caruso was great, as we mentioned as well. Cason Wallace had a couple of big moments as well, I should note.
Yeah.
He had that huge dunk in the third quarter.
Lefty.
Where that was the one where I felt like it kind of sealed it a little bit, where Williams hits him kind of streaking down the court, and then Cason stuffs it with the left right on top of Jokic. That was the one where I felt like you could see Denver's just lack of legs at that point because they just couldn't run in transition anymore.
We always talk about these teams with this amount of depth and versatility, and it's going to be such a strength. And I always like to point out, it's only a strength if the head coach uses it right. And I thought we saw Dagnall tap into that. Listen, you won't find a bigger Isaiah Joe fan, Sam. He only played 4 minutes today. He wasn't in the normal rotation. Caruso played 26. Hartenstein only played 17. And that doesn't mean those guys won't be important in the next series potentially. But in Game 7, series on the line, season on the line, he pushed the correct buttons in terms of rotations, minutes, defensive matchups. And that's what playoff coaching is all about. Again, I thought he had a rough stretch where he went completely small with no bigs on the court for a couple minutes. He recognized it wasn't working, called a timeout, fixed it. It didn't crush them. In the same way that Adelman's simple mistake, as much as we want to give him credit and he deserves it, that 90-second mistake, who knows if they, probably still lose the game, but that 90-second mistake sure gave OKC a lot of momentum and a big run to start the second quarter.
Especially coming off the final five.
Correct.
Of the first quarter too. Yeah. Look, and with Denver too, it's just worth acknowledging the injuries were a serious thing, right? Yeah,
fair.
Aaron Gordon should not be playing right now, and he still played 25 minutes tonight, had 11 rebounds. That dude's a warrior, deserves so much credit. Michael Porter Jr. is obviously dealing with the shoulder injury. I'm sure if this was the regular season, he probably wouldn't be playing as well. And then this team, if you take away Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr., it's really 3.5 guys. It's Jokic, it's Murray, it's Brown, and then it's whatever Russell Westbrook you're getting on any given night. And it's hard to win when that's the situation. It's just really hard to win when you're playing with that kind of limited deck. Julian Strawther, some people enjoyed, he drilled 5 threes, obviously was huge in game 6. I mean, he can't defend is the issue. He is just not capable of playing consistently. He might get hot and might get you a run like he did in game 6, but he can't play if he's not making shots. I mean, Jalen Pickett's not ready for this. I thought the Peyton Watson minutes today were really bad, honestly. It's just the fact that the Nuggets haven't really drilled outside of Christian Brown, a young player, since Michael Porter. And then additionally, not hitting on their taxpayer mid-level exception last summer with Dario Saric, just literally not being able to play in this game even. It's hard. It's really hard to build up that depth. Look at the Thunder and all the guys they've hit on. They've hit on Jalen Williams. They've hit on the other Jalen Williams. They've hit on certainly Aaron Wiggins. They've hit on Cason Wallace. They hit on AJ Mitchell, who played 8 minutes in this game, right? You drill all of those guys. Any of those players that I just mentioned would be Denver at least their 6th best player, right? 7th best player. Would have been their 3rd or 4th best player today, given the injuries with Porter and Gordon. It just has a tumble down, wearing effect on this.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Russ's numbers, first round, averaged 14 points. He shot 42% from 3 on 5 attempts. And then you go into this series, he's under 10 points, 22% from 3. And, he scored 18 and 19 in games 1 and 2 and didn't hit double figures again. The 3-point shot just wasn't consistent enough. I thought some games the minutes were pretty rough from him. And then you can't blame Adelman for going to him, because to your point, where else are you going to go? And that's whenever you get these big time contracts with these really good players, you have to win on the margins. We talk about it all the time. And you mentioned the Saric contract and him not being able to play. They went and drafted Deron Holmes. He unfortunately hurt himself, got hurt in summer league. And would Deron have been ready to play minutes in the playoffs? I don't know. But all of these things come into play in terms of depth and guys that can be impactful in a playoff setting. And they just didn't have enough guys to do it. I mean, I'll be honest, Sam, not to go to the Eastern Conference real quick. That series is going to play out in this. We're going to see if it plays out over there, because Indiana can come at you in waves with a ton of different players, and New York is going to consistently play the same 7 guys for all of their minutes. And it'll be interesting to see if they wear down, whether it's actual injuries, would never hope that on anybody, obviously, or just physically, emotionally wearing down throughout a playoff run and a contested series.
Well, and you know what? People look at the 2023 draft for Denver, right? That's the draft where they take Strawther, Pickett, and Hunter Tyson. And, if you look back through that draft, right, none of those second rounders have really come through. Kobe Brown goes 30th. He hasn't been able to play much. Leonard Miller, my dear sweet child that I adore, who will now play the Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, hasn't really broken through yet. Colby Jones, Andre Jackson, Jordan Walsh, Mo Gay, I guess has played a little bit for Atlanta, but not all that effectively. I mean, you can look up and down. I mean, there just wasn't anybody to really take at the end of the day. Maybe Jalen Wilson,
Tamani,
Brooklyn Nets. Tamani is really the one guy, but honestly, I probably wouldn't have taken. I can't sit here and tell you I would have taken Tamani.
Correct.
29 or 32.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, that's fair.
you can certainly look at this and go, okay, like what else were they going to do? But if you also remember correctly, like they made moves to trade into that draft to go get those guys because they liked those guys. The move would have been maintaining your assets and then having those assets to be able to move at the deadline to go get vets, to be able to go do other things. You know, it's not like the evaluation, I think, was like terrible. Like Julian Strother might end up being the best player out of the guys taken 29 and later. It's just that he also might not be effective outside of Tamani Kamara, of course. It's just they probably made a mistake valuing that draft and valuing the depth of that draft. And that's why, you know, we talk about the depth of drafts, right? And whether or not a second round is going to have real players, you know, being able to kind of swivel and move on the fly if your guys get taken is really important. And, you know, unfortunately, there just doesn't seem to have been a real depth of guys in that 2023 draft. And the mistake really was probably trading into that draft to be able to try and go get players.
The general idea and process we liked, right, was like go get older players that are going to be ready. It's just they didn't draft players that actually were going to be able to be impactful. And so the basic idea made sense. But to your point, if you're going to go in and make those moves to get those 3 picks and whatever the range was there, like you got to feel good about the overall depth or the guys that are there. And to your point, it is interesting looking through all the names. It's not like they passed on guys. It's just evaluations were wrong in general on those. I mean, Tyson, I don't know if he ever really gets there. Pickett gave him some regular season minutes. And like you said, maybe Strother does, you know, just offensively with some firepower there, but it definitely doesn't look like it's going to have the impact. And again, the idea was immediate impact, older players that can come in and play right away. And none of those guys were able to do that in a season where they really needed some depth.
And now we go to the Western Conference Finals, where this is fun, man. Like, this is a fun series. We get Ant versus Shea. One of Ant or Shea is going to be in the NBA Finals a year after Luka Doncic gets to the NBA Finals for the first time. It does feel like this is the real changing of the guard now. Like, the baton has been passed from the Durant, Curry, LeBron era, and maybe LeBron gets back because he's playing with Luka now. But, like, that torch has been passed officially now. That's what this kind of guarantees. And we'll see if Jokic can get back as well, obviously, too. But we've hit the point where like the guys in their mid-20s are really peaking. And that's what makes this series so exciting and thrilling to me is, can Minnesota kind of overcome the crazy defense of Oklahoma City just through sheer shot creation from Anthony Edwards and being able to play? If you look at the regular season series, they were 2-2 against one another. In one of the wins where the Timberwolves were able to come out on top, Anthony Edwards only had 17. He had 17, 13, and 8, so he played really well, but he didn't go crazy. Like, he wasn't out of this world. They still found a way to win without him. And then the other one was a 101 to 116 win where Anthony Edwards had 23, 7, and 7. So, you know, again, he didn't go too crazy against Oklahoma City. So maybe it is a circumstance where they have to win just by getting contributions from literally everybody across the board. The other games here, just kind of to round out the picture of how these two teams played in the regular season. The Oklahoma City Thunder won 113 to 105. That was back in December. And then the other 3 games occurred in February over an 11-day span, where the third game was an Oklahoma City victory, 130 to 123. So, I mean, what are you looking at with this? What are you looking at with this series in general?
I think every series with the Wolves starts with, how is the other team going to defend Anthony Edwards? You know, I think if you're OKC, you can look at it and say, we have Lou Dort, we have J-Dub, we have Caruso, we have all of these point of attack defenders. Let's just try to take him out with those guys, right? But as we always talk about, do you try to challenge Anthony Edwards' decision-making in terms of running 2 guys at him, putting 2 on the ball, showing him extra bodies, and seeing if he can consistently make the right decision? I think a calculation after seeing how good Julius Randle has been in these playoffs is that with Julius Randle in terms of, okay, well, you got to feel like Julius is going to make the right decision, whether it's to score the ball or distribute the ball. Minnesota hasn't shot it great from 3 in the playoffs the way they did in the regular season. And then on the other side is who gets the SGA matchup. I assume it will be Jaden McDaniels to start games. I really hope we get some Anthony Edwards. Where does Mike Conley go on that end? And then one thing I was really like, Minnesota defensively, very good, right? We know this. I think they have some real holes as off the ball defenders. Anthony Edwards gets ball watchy. Julius Randle gets ball watchy. I think even Jaden can happen. Not like all of those guys. And so I was like, man, Denver's really going to exploit that. Christian Brown might get 7 backdoor layups every game if we get a Wolves Nuggets series. Can OKC take advantage of that with J-Dub cutting off the ball, with whoever's on him, with Chet cutting off the ball if Julius Randle is guarding him? So it's some of those things that I'm looking at, not just matchups, but some of the things where, okay, can Ant handle 2, or does OKC even put 2 on him? And then can Minnesota's off-the-ball defense be better in this series than what I felt like it's been so far?
So with Ant, I think they're probably going to try and blitz a little bit more than what the first 2 teams did. And Ant knows how to play in those situations. Like, he dealt with it more than any player in the NBA this year. He just, it's whether or not he can effectively do it, in my opinion. The second piece of it to me, and almost like the one that I'm not sure what Oklahoma City does. Do you think they go Chet on Gobert and Hartenstein on Randall? Or do you think they go Chet on Randall, Hartenstein on Gobert? I almost think that you go Chet on Gobert because you're probably going to see more Gobert Ant ball screens, and I would rather have Chet as the ball screen defender in case he gets isolated and strung out by Ant. I think that's what I would do. Or you could go smaller in this series. You could go like J-Dub on Randall. You could go Hartenstein on maybe go Hartenstein on McDaniels and then make Jaden beat you. And then Chet on Gobert again.
Yeah, that's interesting because so I'm trying to think if I'm Minnesota. So if I see that, if I have Hartenstein, because see, I think if I'm Minnesota and OKC is going to put 2 on Ant, I'm bringing Randall into the ball screen. I'm going to let Randall make those short roll decisions. I'm gonna put Gobert in the dunker, and then obviously space with Jaden and Conley. So that's how I'm looking at it from an OKC perspective of which of those guys is better playing on the ball, who's going to be better making sure Ant doesn't beat you whenever you try to attack it with 2, and then who's better rotating on the back end of it when Julius gets into the lane and is trying to make decisions. So I feel like Chet would be better out there, right? And then you leave Hartenstein in the lane. So then in that scenario, I'd rather Chet on Randall and Hart on Gobert.
I think the way I would do this is the way I kind of said it later, like the last thing I said. I would do Randall on J-Dub. I would do Chet on Gobert because that those are the 2 guys they're going to be sending to screens.
Sure. And then
I would rather I can switch the
Randall Ant ball. Yeah.
Yeah, I can switch the Randall Ant ball screen with Dort and J-Dub.
Yeah.
And Dort can at least physically match up, and stop Randall from getting too deep. Sure. He'll shoot over the top of him, but he'll be able to stop him from getting too deep. On top of it, if you play Hartenstein against McDaniels, you're making McDaniels beat you basically. And if you're going to have McDaniels on the ball, or if you're putting Jaden McDaniels into more usage, that's probably a win for you. All due respect to Jaden, who's had a really good playoff so far. Yeah, I think I would have Hartenstein there as the help defender across the board. And then the smaller lineups are almost a little bit easier because
to get J-Dub
then you bring
on
in
Randall.
Caruso.
Yeah.
Then you bring Caruso for Hartenstein, and you could almost, at that point, you're just kind of switching all of the action.
Whichever, yeah, you do it whichever one you want, right? Caruso can go guard McDaniels or, whatever. And I like that. I was trying to figure out how to get J-Dub on Julius Randle because I think I like that. Because then if you could play so many games with Ant there, you could switch it, you could still double it, and he's not getting out of the Dort J-Dub trap and how active those hands are going to be. And then you still have, like you said, in that scenario, Sam, you have Chet and Hartenstein behind and SGA off the ball, which is what he does best. And I think that's an X factor as well. I would have Conley knocking down catch and shoot opportunities is going to be huge for them. He's at 36% on 4 attempts in the playoffs. SGA is going to match up with him. And if SGA feels like he can roam and be disruptive and take chances because Conley's not consistently knocking down catch and shoots and making him pay, that's going to cause Minnesota a lot of issues because SGA is we've talked about it all year. He's so good in that roamer role. Conley or Na or whoever they have that SGA's matched up with has to make him pay if he's going to do that. They have to knock down shots.
Yeah, and because these games happen later in the year, these 3 February games where the Oklahoma City Thunder and Minnesota played 3 times in an 11-day span. Like Randall didn't play in those games, so we don't really know how to go about or how they will look at this. Basically, like the other option here is you just start Kaysen or something like that. You start Kaysen, you have him guard Conley. You have J-Dub on Randall, and then you minute match the Nas second big minutes with Hartenstein. There are so many different ways to go about this is the thing for Oklahoma City. Talking about it on the other end, though, is almost more interesting to me because it does come down to, I think Randall's actually been pretty good defensively in the playoffs to this point. I think it comes down to how he performs defensively, how Conley performs defensively, and how Nas performs defensively as well. More than anything, can you find places to put those guys on Caruso, onto certainly Dort at times, given how easy he makes it for people, just with his lack of movement all the time around the court. Maybe that's it. I mean, what are you thinking when OKC has the ball?
Yeah, so I would go McDaniels on SGA. I think you have to put Conley on Dort. And my worry there if I'm Minnesota is Lou Dort attacking the offensive boards. That would be my worry with that matchup. And then Ant guards J-Dub if it's the bigger lineup for OKC. And then you have Julius on Chet and Gobert on Hartenstein. I think that's where I would go. But like I said, I would want Anthony Edwards on SGA the final 6 minutes of every game. That's what I would tell Ant is we want you at the point of attack. I've always wanted this from Ant. I just want Ant to be this two-way monster, and we know he can be offensively. And off the ball defensively, maybe that's never going to grow. But this is going to be a great opportunity for him to not just go score 28 points and average how many ever assists and all that. You have a chance to go up against what is probably going to be the MVP of this league. I'm not saying he guards him the whole game, but every high leverage moment, I want to see Anthony Edwards on SGA at the point of attack. I think that would be a lot of fun, and I think that's a challenge Anthony Edwards should take. And I actually think Minnesota should go there. I love Jaden McDaniels, but in a high leverage moment like that, I think I would go to Anthony Edwards. So that's something I will be looking for is how much does Finch, you can't do it all the time because SGA will probably get him in foul trouble and things like that, but in big moments. And then the bench play from Minnesota, right? Not as many options for Finch, but can Dante come in and just be energetic and knock down shots? Is Nas able to come in? Is Na able to knock down shots and maybe spend some minutes on SGA defending him? So I think that's where it starts is slowing down SGA. But I don't mind the matchups for Minnesota outside of, like I say, just a small little thing with Dort on the offensive boards against Conley.
Do you think that Minnesota takes a page out of Denver's book and runs a bit more zone?
Okay, so that's what I don't have. I needed to look through my notes here. Do you have access to like how much teams play zone?
So I looked at Synergy. Synergy has Denver or has Minnesota having only played 6 possessions of zone in the playoffs so far, but they also only have Denver having played 195, which feels wrong to me. Like it feels like Denver played way more zone in this series alone than that. Just they sat in that 2-3 like very regularly. So I don't know if like maybe they might be like missing some possessions here and there, but my read is that if I remember correctly from like some of those games, and again it's hard because Randall didn't play in those February games, I felt like they played a bit of zone. I don't remember how much, but I feel like in my head I have them like playing a little, at least a little bit of zone.
Yeah, so I'm just like scrolling back through all of my full game notes, and I got through the playoffs, and I didn't have any. And I usually try to make note of that, right? Like if a team goes zone, I try to make note of it, and I didn't have any for the playoffs games that like I watched and took notes on. And man, I'm going through my regular season notes as well. I'm halfway through just scrolling to see that, and I haven't seen much here either. So I wonder how much they'll be willing to do it, right? Like I wonder, and maybe it is a thing where after seeing it in this series, if it's something that they'll go to. I also felt like OKC got better at figuring that zone out at times with Denver. I think SGA's big three that I mentioned earlier was a ball screen at the top of the key to get his three. Chet working the baseline was there. Now Gobert's length makes that a little bit more difficult for a team.
That's kind of what I was thinking as well, is like Gobert's length in the zone actually makes this like a real option in my opinion.
Well, and Jaden and McDaniels as well, right? With a lot of length as also. So I just not knowing how much they've worked on it, how much they believe in it, etc., makes me a little bit nervous that I can't find anywhere in my notes as I scroll through all of those games that it's not an integral part of what they want to do. But I think Finch could do it strategically throughout a game. Maybe they don't play as many consecutive possessions as Denver did, but, after timeouts, start of quarters, end of quarters, momentum situations, maybe it's something they can throw at them and use that length on the back line, especially to slow things down.
Agree. Yeah, I think that we do see Minnesota go zone, and we'll have to figure out how Oklahoma City is going to play it. You know what I mean? It is interesting to me as well that this is the series that starts Tuesday, as opposed to the East. I don't know totally what the TV. I'm sure it has something to do with like the TV rights there. I think that TNT is the East and ESPN as the West, so it could be a situation where something to do with the TV rights. Basically, they needed to start the West on a certain day. Basically.
Yeah, I found that interesting as well. Like the Knicks, I think, really benefit from this schedule because, they let a game get away, had to play an extra one, but they still get 4 days off because of how this plays out, where OKC, 1 day off and you're right back to it. You would like to think that, especially with how today's game went and this being a younger team, that they will be okay in regards to that. They've only played, I don't think this is updated, they've only played one more game than Minnesota. I think that's correct. Minnesota went 5-5. OKC must have went, 4-7, right?
Yeah. They've only played one more game, but they're coming off of the longer.
But they're coming off the longer stretch. I was kind of just like trying to look at like total minutes played and stuff like that and see. Yeah, it's not that crazy. It's just the fact that it's only 1 day now, where Minnesota's had we haven't seen Minnesota. It's going to be a week at least, probably since their last game. So I'm always interested to see how that plays out, Sam, in terms of does OKC. I'm interested to see if OKC getting over this Denver series and winning this game 7 at home and coming off that emotional high of what they did today, is there a letdown going into game 1 into this series? it's not easy to do, to like refocus yourself, and they only get one day to do it.
It's a really good point. It is a really good point that they have to figure out how to refocus going into this. They do have home court advantage.
Yep.
They do have the deeper team. They have a lot of different options here to be able to kind of work through different defensive answers for Anthony Edwards. I do think that they have more answers for Anthony Edwards potentially than Minnesota does for Shea. It's just whether or not Ant just decides to go supernova, which we've seen before and is like entirely plausible, right? At the end of the day, I still am going Oklahoma City here. I think I will say in 6 or 7, like something like that. I think this is going to be a tougher series. I think Minnesota is awesome. Like I have all the respect in the world for Minnesota. I do think I just trust. Look, I picked Oklahoma City. I think I picked them in the preseason. I picked them going into the playoffs. Like I'm still riding with Oklahoma City here at the end of the day.
Yeah, somebody from OKC asked me yesterday, like, hey, can you record a quick 60-second prediction on Game 7 or whatever? And that was the point of what I recorded was, I mean, I put out my preseason predictions that they would have a big-time regular season, and and then they went out and did it. And after watching them do it, why would I doubt them come playoffs? And then they just, it's Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, and they were able to overcome that. They had the Game 6. J-Dub was able to bounce back from some, questionable performances and have a big game in Game 7. And I just feel like they're going to take confidence in that and continue. So I'm not trying to discount the Timberwolves. I think there's a chance Anthony Edwards is the best player in this series. And because of that, Minnesota should have I'm not saying he is going in. I'm saying he could be by the end of the series. There's a chance he could have the best series of any player and dominate the series. And like you said, OKC should have a lot of answers for that. I think my X factor for Minnesota is Julius Randle. Do we continue to get this level of play from Julius? Because OKC has a lot of answers for him as well in terms of the different bigs they could put on him along with the wing like J-Dub. But I would, there you go. Go ahead.
I honestly think that this is like the smartest thing that we could say.
I think this is a great statement.
Yeah, from Callum in the YouTube comments while we go live. By the way, we go live as we record these, as you guys know. Go subscribe on YouTube. It's great. Whoever has a better series out of Julius Randle and Jalen Williams will decide the series. I think that's probably true. Like whoever figures out how to impact the game the most on both ends, Jalen has been really up and down. He was amazing today. He was terrible in Game 6, right? Yeah. It's been a real roller coaster for him so far. So I think people know, like, I'm a massive Jalen Williams fan. I think that he is going to be an absolute superstar. He just is very young, and we've seen Randall struggle in the playoffs. He's been amazing so far in this playoffs, but going back into the past, it has not always been sweet for Julius Randle, right? So it's two guys that have playoff inconsistencies now in their track record. And I think J-Dubs is just much shorter at this point. But man, I think that's probably right. Whoever has the better series between Julius Randle and Jalen Williams, that team will win. For and go to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I like that. Especially going in, assuming there's no like outlier role player performance or just a dud from one of the two stars. So that was a long way of me getting to, I will also take the Thunder in this series. And I haven't seen anything, and I don't have any reason to question making that decision since it's kind of what I've rode all year long.
Okay. Before we move to the NBA draft question and answer section of the show, which, by the way, if you have some questions, throw them in. We'll start with some Twitter questions, and then we'll move to the chat. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. They've made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. And look, Bryce, with the Western Conference Finals starting, we could start throwing out some picks here, and we have a nice little runway because this game isn't until Tuesday. Tuesday, right? Yeah, I think it's Tuesday. We can get Alex Caruso over 5.5 points. Where I just think he's going to play enough minutes to where he's going to score more than 5.5 points.
Okay.
Jalen Williams, I think, has actually been really good passing the ball so far. He had 7 assists today. His over 4.5 assists feels pretty good to me. And then Jaden McDaniels over 0.5 3-pointers made in game 1. Where again, you and I, or at least I think, I think you sort of to an extent.
He's going to get enough attempts that I think he'll at least make one.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I think he gets at least one, to where if you do that, you can get 2.7 times your money over at PrizePicks. I fully recommend that. I think that is a great idea. And you can cash in on the basketball playoffs with PrizePicks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your PrizePicks lineup. And you can turn those playoff hot takes into tickets to win, or you can turn those hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, every lineup you make on PrizePicks will enter you in the Takes 2 Tickets sweepstakes, which get you and a +1, a VIP trip to the ship every Tuesday, which, by the way, that game will be on Tuesday. PrizePicks discounts several projections on the board, usually by 15 to 25%. And then every Friday is Flex Friday. You can opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Download the app today and use the code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay. Bryce, let's get into some NBA draft questions. But we're going to start with one that came from an NBA scout friend of mine that I know. He took the clarion call and decided to ask a question himself. And because, we can't really just start throwing up things from NBA scouts on the screen, I'm just going to have to read this one. There seem to be a lot of defenders in this class who have some aesthetic issues with how they move, but the functionality of their defense at the college level wasn't hindered completely. So he brings up Danny Wolf and Con Knipple here as examples for this. There are also a lot of weird movers with different builds in this class that are anywhere from very good on defense to better than you expect, from Colin Murray Boyles, Noah Penda, to Ben Suraf and Jaeger Devin. How much of your evaluation is stuck on tools and an analysis of the movement profile versus just how they have been defensively on tape in terms of the tape in terms of the impact that they have, and how much do combine measurements swing your trust in either direction?
It's a great question. So I did find myself with the combine measurements, all I really considered or thought about whenever those would come across was the defensive end, to be honest with you, in terms of okay, is this guy going to be able to provide rim protection? In Khan's case, is this guy going to be able to scale up and guard the size of offensive players that I want him to? Because while I think he holds up at the point of attack in college, I'm worried about his ability to hold up at the point of attack against twitchier, more explosive, quicker perimeter athletes in the NBA. So I would say yes, in terms of those measurements at the combine, that is one thing that I at least take into account for what I think they can be on the defensive end specifically. The aesthetics of their movement is interesting because I'm trying to think of anybody who I have that in. You know what I've watched more and more, Sam? You talk about high hips all the time.
Yes.
And that was something that I hadn't really thought about as much until you said it.
Drives me crazy because those guys with higher hips just get leveraged all the time. And it's being able to drop your hips and move at the point of attack. It's being able to hold your position, whether against a post up or a box out or whatever. And so I do find myself trying to look for those things a little bit more now as well. That's not exactly aesthetics, but no.
Yeah.
Well, it's important in terms of movement profile.
Movement
to me,
profile
and in terms
more.
of physical strength profile. So we're going to get another question here next on a guy that actually has high hips that I'm a little bit lower on. I get the impression about, as we'll talk about, when we get to him. But I think that having like a lower center of gravity allows you to be able to just slide a little bit quicker, and then B, also be able to handle contact. Like Cason Wallace has a really low center of gravity and is able to absorb bumps at a really high level, despite the fact that he's like 190 pounds, right? Like he's not wildly like heavy. Like, he doesn't have like Dylan Harper coming in at like 215, 220, right? He just is very strong and is able to load up and is able to like absorb that contact when it comes to you. And I think that's such a big part of defense. I don't think Alex Caruso has like wildly low hips, but Caruso has incredible bend and is able to like get in a stance and be able to like be straight up in his stance and also get his ass lower to the ground. So you don't necessarily have to have these incredibly, low to the ground hips, right? But you have to be able to get your hips lower to the ground is really the key to me. And there are a number of guys in this class that I think struggle to do that. We'll talk about one in a second. And there are some guys that I think are pretty good at it. Like I think Con Knippel plays with bend really, really well. Now Con just might not be quite twitchy enough to be like a super high level defender, but I think that Con is really smart and really intelligent about the way that he uses angles. And I think is never going to be like a liability on defense because I think he knows where to kind of take guys into the help and is very good at being able to kind of push guys where he needs to using his physical strength. So that's kind of an interesting, point with Knippel, I think. And I think like Colin Murray Boyles, for instance, has a lower center of gravity for a player that also has super long arms, because typically like they kind of go together, right? Where you have a higher center of gravity and you have longer arms, you have like kind of longer limbs in general, right? The guys that almost are like the cheat codes to me, like your Draymond Green is like the prime example of this. The guy that I look at like, this is it. Draymond Green has a low center of gravity, but also has incredibly long arms. Mm-hmm. And that allows him to be able to get the most out of his length and his strength, right? I think Colin Murray Boyles has a similar mix of those two things, while also not necessarily being quite as, not quite as intelligent and not quite as good in terms of movement as Draymond is. I don't love that comparison that people are making, but I do really, really like, I like that combination of movement factors in a real way.
It's funny. I told somebody today the two comps that terrify me when people make them are Nikola Jokic and Draymond Green, because it's like,
and Kevin Durant, honestly, for me.
Yeah. And it's not, it's not because I think people are saying they're going to be Nikola Jokic. I understand that that's not what people are saying. It's just for those two guys, the level of processing and court mapping and all of that, it has to be all of these things that tick every single box. And if one of them doesn't, it's like, well, what if Draymond was a half a second slower mapping the court on both ends of the floor? What is Draymond Green then? Like, what is he? What if his wingspan is, not neutral, but average? What is he then? So one thing that you said there too, one thing I've really watched a lot more since I had a scout tell it to me was being able to hold your line defensively. And that could be lowering your center of gravity. Colin Murray Boyles has this with his chest, his torso. Like, he's just very strong. And when somebody bumps him, he doesn't move. I'll be a homer here. This is what Isaiah Stewart is really good at on the defensive end.
Yes.
When somebody hits Isaiah Stewart's chest, he does not move usually in general, and he has a really good wingspan. And so you don't watch Isaiah Stewart and go, wow, what a high riser, but he blocks and contests a ton of shots because he puts his chest on you, you don't move him, and he contests. You know who that kind of gets me excited about in terms of the idea of it? is our guy, Cedric Coward, because I feel like he could do some of those things, even though I haven't seen it as much as what I'd want. So that kind of plays into the question, do I buy into or think about what I've seen? Or do I look at Cedric Coward and say, here's ridiculous length. Here's a guy with good athleticism, good movement. You put a little bit more weight on the frame, and that's a really good point of attack defender. Like Rasheer Fleming is another one. Well, let me ask you this. Which one of those things do you think Rasheer Fleming doesn't have? Because he does have the wingspan. So what holds you back with Rasheer defensive? I think I know the answer, but what holds you back with Rasheer defensively?
I think he has no idea where he's going on defense.
So that's the big difference here, right? Like that's where this other stuff comes into play is Rasheer has this crazy length. I think he has a good frame. I don't think he moves on the perimeter quite as well as some of the guys we're talking about, but then you have to have this other stuff as well in terms of reaction and movement and awareness. And again, it's going to be my favorite thing to say now, court mapping on the defensive end, not just offensively. So.
No, I completely agree with all that. So I guess that to answer this question from this NBA scout who sent us this beautiful question, which I love, I care more about the tape than I do about the tools, because I think that where you pick up on the ability to map the court, to move, to be able to rotate effectively is realistically just by watching full games of tape. Like that's what you have to do. And you really have to kind of grind through it to understand it a little bit more. I think that is really kind of the key, and I care way more about the tape than I do about the physical. Like I care about the physical tools. I think there are certain levels and like thresholds you probably have to hit in order to be effective, and I worry about like Khan being able to hit like more than a certain level because he is, not super explosive and twitchy. But I don't think Khan's ever going to be like a bad NBA defender. He's too competitive. He's too smart. He's physical. He's strong. He knows where to send guys. Like I care way more about the tape. And that's why, I think I'm a little bit lower on, like, I really like Noah Penda's tape on defense. I think Noah Penda is a really good defender. I've seen people compare him to like Herb Jones and like other really, really high-end defenders. And I'm just like, the tape does not say that, guys. If you watch the full games, like it does not. He gambles way more often, and he's not quite as laterally quick as those guys. So it's like a mix and match of the tools. But I like Noah Penda. Like, I'm not taking shots at Noah Penda. I think he's, probably one of the, 10 best defensive prospects in the class for sure. I really like Penda. But I can't quite get to the point where I think he's like a real, oh my God, this guy might be making all defense team guy either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've always been, I think it's fine. Penda's going to be a really fascinating one for me because I think we are in a similar idea on Penda. I'm just much lower on his defense than others are. I think it's fine. Yeah. I think it's probably good, but it's nowhere, to me, it's nowhere near Herb Jones. Now, this may be the Tari.
I like Carter Bryant more than I like him on defense, to be honest with you.
And this may end up being like a Tari Eason thing for me where we've talked about this. We went through the whole thing. We sat down on the couch and you got it out of me. Bryce, why do you not appreciate defensive playmaking enough? And, it's why, like, I was like, I don't get it with Tari Eason. I don't see it coming out of college. I was like, he just takes chances. He's always just jumping passing lanes. And I was a baby scout then. I've come a long way. But that's my thing with Penda a little bit too is, and maybe he's just going to be that disruptive and do all of those things. But I'm with you as well is, I refuse to talk about a player's defense if I don't watch a full game. I will not do it. I feel much more comfortable getting the grasp of an offensive player in terms of like if I just watch certain clips and whatever. I don't think you can click on steals, blocks, defensive rebounds, those things on Synergy and tell me what a guy is on the defensive end because you miss communication, transition, rotations. Does he rotate box out when he's supposed to? Like, okay, he got 6 defensive rebounds. Did he rotate and get the most important one that kept somebody off the offensive boards? So I refuse to talk defense till I've seen a full game.
Completely agree. Okay. let's go to the next one. So from Jeff Jazuski over on Twitter. I know you guys are around the median range to slightly lower on Common Maluwatch, which he agrees with. But what do you think the case is for folks that rank him in their top 3 to 5? Is there a rationale that you could see for him being that high? So I think that the reason people rank him that high is that they see like real shooting upside.
Yep.
They think he's going to be like an elite level defender. And they think that he is going to be like a monster, like gravitational pick and roll force as a rim runner. I don't see any of that. I see the defense. Like, I think he could be a really, really high level defender. I understand why people love the finishing. He was obviously incredibly effective as a finisher this year. I'll pull up my the draft guide profile written on him while we're talking. But like, I have the numbers if we need them. Made 80.6% of his shots at the rim per synergy, 72% from the field in total. Also made 67% of his layups, which is an amazing number. The thing for me is that he just doesn't get those shots often enough. It's like a Mitchell Robinson, Rudy Gobert situation because I don't love his hands. And then the other thing that we kind of just alluded to a second ago for Common is that he has these very high hips that I think allow him to kind of get bumped off of his line by taggers and by bigs kind of coming back to be able to get back in the play. And he doesn't get downhill enough to consistently get lobs at the end of the day. That's what worries me most. And then there's like the rebounding issues where, again, the very high hips allow him to kind of get moved around by guys jostling for offensive rebounds. Yeah, I have some Maluwatch concerns. I think that hold me back to him being like, I think he can be like a really solid starting caliber NBA center, but I don't really ever see him being like an all-star center. Like I don't see that at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, listen, this was a guy like early on in the process. I was like, this is going to be my guy. I'm really excited. I think there's potential floor spacing here. Like this is the archetype of big that, as people know, I can really fall in love with. I'm always looking for the rim protecting, floor spacing big. It's why like I love Miles Turner so much, and I think he's been awesome in these playoffs. And I just think that floor spacing really provides so much. I've soured a little bit. So I think that's the answer. You outlined the answer. I'm not there. And I also just have I think he plays hard, but I don't know that he plays fast. So like to our last question,
agree.
This is one of the things I am nervous. And again, maybe I will learn a lesson here. I am nervous that in college, when the game's not quite as fast and, everybody's not quite as athletic, whenever the game speeds up in the NBA and he's out of position, he doesn't react quite as quick, he doesn't get off the floor quite as quick. Is that going to become a huge factor? I have it right here in my notes. Doesn't matter as much in college, but I think it will in the NBA. And again, maybe I will learn that it's not. Maybe he'll just improve and get better. But that is a real worry for me, along with the high hips, the hands, and some of the other stuff we've talked about.
And just to be clear, the reasons that I really like Common Maluwatch, I love the way that he improved defensively throughout the year. I think he got so much better with his distance control and gap control and ball screen coverages. Duke ran different ball screen coverages where they play him closer to the level, and he showed the ability to recover back at times. He showed some switch ability this year, in my opinion. I think he has pretty good feet in space. I wouldn't say he's going to be a switch defender, but I think that if he gets caught on an island out there, he's pretty good. I think he's really good on the interior contesting shots. Or in ACC play, opposing team shot 9% worse around the rim and 9% worse overall at the basket when Maluwatch was on the court. And that is with the fact that Duke also had a great backup defensive big with Malik Brown in the game. So that's not, Duke didn't have a backup center. Maluwatch was just really, really impactful as an interior defender. I think he is going to be really, really good on that end. It's just really, can the offense kind of get to the level that it needs to get to in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought up the defense in terms of like I think the ball screen defense versatility is a real possibility for him. Like I think he can sit down in a stance and I think he can play drop, but then I think there is some stuff where if a team wanted to be a little more creative with him in ball screen coverages, he like that's a real possibility. I think that's something he can do. And so I like the defense. There's just some other things I'm a little bit worried about. And I'm glad you brought up the improvement because that was one of my early notes was he was giving a high foot, turning his hips to the sideline and in ball screen stuff early in the season. And I thought it got a little bit better throughout the year.
The other thing I will call out, I really liked him as a screener on offense. Like he makes contact, he screens and rescreens, like he's physical and genuinely like will hold the mesh point of the screen in order to like make sure that Khan was getting, a little bit of separation because he ran a lot of screens with Khan is why I bring up Khan. Brian brings up this idea. He could be a slightly better version of Mitchell Robinson. I think they're just different. Like part of what makes Mitch so good is that he's so athletic and also incredibly like weirdly strong. Malawach like doesn't quite have that weird strength level that Mitch does. And Mitch is obviously like a little bit bouncier and more explosive. It is almost like Rudy Gobert, just like with maybe less length and like a little bit less, like he doesn't move as well as Gobert does now, in my opinion. So he's a hard one. He's a hard one to comp to. And I don't love comps in general, but I know people kind of like it to get the idea. I think like stylistically, it's a little bit more like Rudy Gobert, just maybe not as good.
Yeah, like I'm with you. I think he has starter potential in the league. It's not like we have common. I mean, I think we've taken him higher than what we have him on our boards. I don't know, like what are your?
I have him for what it's worth. I have him like 10 to 14 range, like somewhere in there is where I'll fall for me.
That's where I'm at as well. So like we both solidly have him in the lottery. I still think it would be awesome. I was looking at somebody asked me today, like, what would be your favorite fits? I'm like, if he did end up in Atlanta, I think that would be incredible. Like, I think that would be awesome for him.
I agree.
If Trey is the plan there long term, or Trey, like if they're going to continue to run some sort of that offense, go in and play behind Onyeka for 2 years and help yourself develop and grow. That's going to be a great backup big for them, and then develop that chemistry with Trey or whoever it is. And then I think that's your center. Like, I think that's one of those scenarios. I think that's a great landing spot for Common, even if it means he's at 13 instead of, oh, well, it'd be cooler if he went 9 to Toronto. I'm like, okay, maybe, but I think the better spot for him like would be Atlanta. I think that would be an awesome fit for those two.
I agree. From Zach Rudine, this feels like a great opportunity for Philly to trade back and get one of the best bigs in this class with the uncertainty of Embiid and the general need for another big. Should they target a trade back and get a big or take the best player available? Okay, so I like the idea of Philly trading back. I think Philly should trade back. It depends on how far they're going back in the draft to me, because and what else they're getting. Because to me, like, they really need to fill other holes on the team more than anything else. If they're going to maximize this window, and really if you're thinking about it from like a Daryl Morey and the rest of that front office perspective, like they need to maximize their chances for next year in order to keep their jobs, right? I think that they probably need to go out and get like a bigger forward, who can shoot at the end of the day. I think that they could certainly use like a backup big, but I also think they need just like another wing even that can play. Like they need multiple bodies to be able to throw at the problem on the wing, especially like with Paul George not getting younger either. Basically, if Joel Embiid gets hurt and only plays 20 games next year, they're probably getting fired anyway, those front office people. If he doesn't, then they're probably fine. And at that point, you're probably trying to maximize what your chances are in the playoffs anyway. So I think that if they were able to get like, number 8 and number 19 from Brooklyn, in addition to Cam Johnson, or number number 19 and 27, like whatever it is. Like I would use the Cam Johnson asset and the first asset to go get like your wings basically. And then I might use the later asset, be it 19 or 27, to go get another big. It'd be more like that to me, as opposed to, we should take a big at number 3. I think that should be absolutely off the table. Like they should never take a big at 3 in this draft, at least. There's just nobody that has that upside to me. I do wonder if they were moving down to like, the mid, teens to the 20s, if you might do something like that.
Okay, so that's what I was like, okay, they move back to that range. Like, what's the name there, though? I mean, is it, we just talked about Common. I mean, I guess is the backup big. That's interesting, but him and Sorber would be the names then? Like you're trading back into a range where you still get one of those two guys. Would that be the idea?
Yeah, like, it'd be Derek Queen, Maluach, Sorber. I mean, I guess Danny Wolf, but like that doesn't totally track. Like Baron J, but Baron J is a project and like isn't going to be able to play immediately. I mean, Essengay isn't a center really, especially in the NBA next year. I don't think Newell is going to be a center next year in the NBA, at least. It'd be like Kalkbrenner then, like later in the first round, if you're doing anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for them, it would be more like go get established. If I'm going to trade 3, I think I want to like bring in guys. I don't know that I'm as worried about like trading down to get a big or something like that. I think it would be, I'm just either, trading down and getting that established, if it's Cam Johnson, if it's some other center on the market or whatever it is. Cause I'm with you. Like, as I think through their roster, I feel like I need a wing. I need a 4, a couple 4s, depending on what happens to Yabusele, and a backup center, right? Like I feel like I'm needing all of those things. So
yeah. No, I think that's right. From Bucket Getter, in a tertiary creator role, who do you think would be most impactful between Kasparis, Con Knipple, and Will Riley? So Kasparis Yakashonas, 6'5" guard from Illinois, Con Knipple, 6'5", wing from Duke, and Will Riley, 6'8" wing from Illinois.
I
guess
you
take that one.
So wait, reread the question. Creator.
So tertiary, so like secondary creator, so, not playing consistently.
Okay, yeah. So like specifically to that question, I would say Kasparis, just because I think Kasparis is the best, like would have the best like on ball, like break down the defense, make passing decisions, stuff like that. He just like played more on the ball. So I think because in my mind here, I'm taking out like the ability to knock down shots and stuff like that. Like if you're,
I'm including all of it.
Okay,
what it's worth.
Then I would say Con.
Yeah.
I would say Con then, because one, I have Con higher than Kasparis on my board, and I think that is Con's role essentially. So if we're factoring the ability to knock down shots and what that's going to force in terms of closeouts and like just making one more passes and stuff like that, it would be Con. If you're asking me specifically who would be the best creator only, like who's only the best at creating out of those situations, I would probably go Kasparis.
I think that's right, but I think is like the tertiary creator next to like a star guard, I think is the idea.
Sure.
I would go Con, because Con is the best shooter of the group by far, can
Agreed.
Also handle the ball, can also make decisions, and can like play in ball screens occasionally. I think it's like definitely Con.
I went over on the... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Second for me would be Kasparis, even so.
Yeah.
I really like Kasparis playing as like your secondary playmaker because of the ability to dribble, pass, shoot. Will is like a little bit too inconsistent for me as a shooter right now. That's why I do have him as a first rounder. I thought I wasn't going to get there, but I do have him there. I quite like where we're at with those two being ahead of Will, though. I think there is like a clear order. I think it's 1, 2, 3 for that.
I agree as well. For me, it would be Con, Kasparis, Will. Unless you ask me pure creation, then I would flip Con and Kasparis. And I'm intrigued by Will's all-around versatility on the offensive end. I don't want to undersell that. I was going to say, I was over on the Busby podcast and we were talking about options for Charlotte at number 4. And they asked me, what is the upside of Con Knipple? Like, where is it at? And I'm interested to see if you agree. I told them it is his off the dribble game. Like, is he able to operate ball screens in a consistent way, the way we saw at times at Duke, where he had this chemistry with Common Malawat? Like, does he develop a chemistry with Mark Williams, whoever the big is in Charlotte for the foreseeable future? I told him I thought that was the upside, that all of a sudden Con is running second units and is just doing a lot more off the bounce and creating and passing than what maybe we're talking about all the time or people are giving him credit for.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, with the potential guard dead zone from 8 to 16-ish, how do you think teams will generally rank these wings? Colin Murray-Boyles, Carter Bryant, Noah Essengay, Nick Clifford, Rasheer Fleming, Cedric Coward. Colin Murray-Boyles, like 6'6", big, basically from South Carolina. Carter Bryant, 6'7", wing from Arizona. Noah Essengay, we don't have a height measurement on, but he plays for Ulm right now. He's more of a forward. Nick Clifford, like 6'5" to 6'6", wing from Colorado State. Rasheer Fleming, 6'9"-ish, big to me from St. Joe's. Cedric Coward, 6'5", wing from Washington State, Eastern Washington, the year before. So yeah, as you can kind of hear, I don't think all of these are wings. I think Murray-Boyles is like somewhere between a wing and a big, like really probably more of a 4 than anything, like a 4 or 5. I think Carter Bryant's like a 3-4, pretty firmly fits on the wing. I think Essengay is more of like a big in the Pascal Siakam, style range, right?
Yeah.
Nick Clifford, 6'5" to 6'6", definitely a wing. I think Rasheer Fleming is more of a big, personally, in terms of the way that he thinks the game, in terms of the fact that he can't really dribble, just more of a big to me. And then Coward is like a true wing. How do I think teams rank them? I think teams are just all over the map on it. I think Carter Bryant's probably the one where you would find the most consensus around him being like a very high-end player. A guy that's like definitely a top 12 guy in the class. Murray-Boyles, you will find teams that love him, like truly love him. You will find teams that just aren't super interested in him. And again, though, part of the reason that teams like him is they like the idea of using him at times as like almost a 5, as opposed to, him being more of a wing. I would say like between Essengay and Coward next, like I think Coward probably has a bit more of a consensus feel for him right now, where teams like him and just can feel like they know what he is as a, guy that is big, long, can shoot wing and has some real potential defensively. Essengay is going to be more of a fit situation. And I think he's further away than people think from being productive in the NBA. Like I see people say that he's a good defender, and I don't understand it. If you watch full games, like he's a pretty bad defender, honestly, right now. Doesn't really have great instincts off the ball, really can struggle against guards to get leveraged on the ball, where like guys will just blow by him. Like I can pull clips where like I've seen like quite a few guards just like completely blow by him this year. Then I would say Clifford and Rasheer are the next two. You get different opinions on Fleming. And then Neek is a guy that I think just goes somewhere in the first round. It could be anywhere from like 13 to 26, somewhere in that ballpark. The order of where the run starts, again, run probably starts, I would guess one of these guys goes right around 10. I think Bryant would probably be my best guess. Maybe Murray-Boyles. Murray-Boyles ticks a lot of boxes for what Houston looks for in general. But like Carter Bryant also makes sense for them. I can see Essengay in the late lottery. I can see Coward 13 to 20 is my read on his range right now. Basically like I think Coward's range is like 13 to where like I would be surprised if he got past the second Oklahoma City pick. Not because like he just is very Oklahoma City in terms of what they look for.
Yeah.
Fleming, is just all over the map. Like I've talked to teams that think he's like a two-way player, frankly. And then I've talked to other teams that think he's like a real first round prospect. I think he's probably last of this group in terms of where teams think. And then Neek is again, like somewhere there. Will any of these guys be available at 22? I would predict yes, that at least one of these guys is available at 22.
So for the audio only listeners, the second question was, do you think anybody would be left at 22 hoping for a double wing draft? I mean, I think if that's what you want, the possibility will be there for Atlanta. A lot of those names will be on the board at 13. And then at 22, some of those names will be on the board along with potentially a Liam McNeely, I know like wing forward, whatever, like Noah Pinda, Will Riley, like you'll have some other guys that are available there. So I think Atlanta will have the option to go double wing with some good options at those two spots.
Yep. Okay. Next, from Milos Novakovsky, who is the best perimeter defender in the late first to mid second round range? Late first is getting into like Noah Penda territory. I would probably say Penda's up there on that list for me. I think Adu Tiero has a real case. I think Tiero is really good on defense. I think Drake Powell has a case, but Drake Powell like can't do anything on offense right now.
That's a good call.
It's a real project on offense, in my opinion, for Powell. If you had to pick one of those guys, I think I would say Penda, then Tiero, then Powell probably would be the three, right?
I like Powell's defense. I thought it was really good, especially down the stretch. So here's my exact notes on Drake Powell, Sam. 3-and-D wing. Let me finish. I buy the defense. I am not sure I can buy the offense. And then ... Yeah, like maybe it's there. I really bought into his defense late in the season.
Agree.
Yeah, Tiero's a good call. Again, I know I'm a little lower on Pinda. I'm not saying he like stinks defensively, but I think I might just go Powell if we're talking straight defense.
I think Powell might be the best on-ball defender of the group. I think he might be the worst off-ball defender of the group right now. I really actually kind of liked Tiero the more I watched his defense. Like, I really like that he always bumps cutters and rollers when he's the low man. Like, just make sure he's always in position there, can really cover ground to get back out to shooters because he's so athletic, takes such long strides. Like, he really is like a good scramble defender. Obviously like a real defensive playmaker too, 1.6 steals, 0.7 blocks. But like, I think that all of the other stuff that you move into defense is also quite good with Tiero. Tiero is like right at the edge of the first round for me. Like I have him like in that like 28 to 32 range right now. I really don't like the offense, and I've seen people will pull clips of like the Illinois game against where Arkansas played Illinois and he had like 27. It was like, well, no, he had 27 because they didn't guard him. They guarded him with Tomislav Vesic, and he did a good job of taking advantage of that. But like that's why that happened, guys. Like the context here is really, really important. It's basically like when an NBA team doesn't guard a guy specifically and purposely. So yeah, it's the context is important.
What about like smaller guards? Not necessarily, but like what about guards? So like I'm thinking like between like Jace, Tahad, Phylon, Cam Jones, Tyrese Proctor, Shulga, who would
Phylon's probably the best defensive guard there for me, especially long term. I would say once he puts on more strength, I think particularly he will be the best defensive guard of that group. I mean, Zion James, like if we're looking purely defensively on the guard, like Zion James is an awesome defender. If you're looking like mid-second round in the backcourt, it's just I do have real offensive questions there too. Zion is probably the best defender right now of that group, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, let's see, what do we got here? Let's see here. Kind of answered that Fleming question a little bit. I think he would be a reach at like 12 or 14. Okay, this is a good one. From Holly Hardy, would it be worth the Jazz trying to trade up to number 3 from number 5? What would the cost look like? For me, I would not try to move up from 5 to 3. If I could move up from 5 to 2 or 5 to 1, obviously I would do it. I do not think that 5 to 3 is all that valuable in this draft because I have a very similar grade on all of like Trey Johnson, Con Knipple, VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey. I think that's probably going to be a tier. Kasparis is like right on the border of that tier for me. Right in that group for me. But I would not move from 5 to 3 and give up like a first round pick. I would stay at 5 and pick if I was them.
I agree with you. Like, I never want to say never, depending on what the cost, like Holly asked here. I don't know what that would cost, but I would not either. I think I would just stay at 5 if I'm Utah and let the board fall to me and take what is there. I'm with you.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we got? What do we got next? We've got. Let's just answer this. Is Porzingis in the 28th pick for Jalen Duren a deal that makes sense for Detroit?
So my immediate reaction to this is Porzingis is not the type of vet that Trajan Langdon has shown to prioritize in his 12 months as GM of the Detroit Pistons. So far, he has prioritized veterans who play a lot of minutes who play a lot of games. All of those acquisitions have been in that ilk. It's one offseason, it's 1 year, and maybe they're transitioning to a more aggressive approach. But I would be surprised if all of a sudden he decided to go after a player like Porzingis, who has had injury concerns. And, even in these playoffs, we saw it again. I would be surprised if that's something Detroit would do, even though I understand the idea here of a stretch big and all of that. I think that idea, the idea there, I completely get. Like, I understand what the person is going for.
We can just answer this one because we're getting back to the Jazz real quick. Do the Jazz taking Ace or Khan at number 5 if VJ and Trey are gone? I would imagine it would be one of those two. Yes. I would imagine it would be one of those two would be my read.
Yeah.
Maybe Fears. Like, I think Fears is not impossible then. I don't know how they would evaluate Fears within that group. Again, Fears is just not a guy that like I'm on the same page with. So it's hard for me in that regard, but yeah. Okay. We'll just answer the one below this. What's up with the Liam McNeely slide?
I mean, I think for a lot of people, I would guess there's some athleticism concerns. And then for a player, and we've talked about this multiple times, a player who was pegged as a shooter, he shot 32% on 5.5 attempts. We've talked about it though. He shot 87% from the free throw line. I think he's a good shooter. The context and the role he was asked to play in did not do him any services. I still think I still have him mid first round. I'm probably higher than others, so he hasn't slid as much for me. And I would assume, Sam, there's probably some questions around like ability to attack off the bounce and finish at the rim. Like, along with the 3-point percentage, he was 38% from the field overall. So I feel like those are probably some of the questions, and those athleticism, movement things go to the defensive end of the floor and what it looks like there, even though I think he competes his ass off and will be a good team defender in terms of communication, rotation, those type of things.
Yeah, so I just looked up the numbers here really quickly. So Liam McNeely in his first 14 games shot 38% from 3 and 85% from the line. That is the first 14 games are the games he played before the ankle injury.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bryce.
No, I was just gonna say that's another important point as well is the ankle injury along with the team context.
Yeah, I think that's really like the entire context of Liam McNeely's like season is like before and after the ankle injury. He was at 43% from the field before that. If you look after the ankle injury, the 13 games, shot 35, 26, 88. Like it was just night and day. Like he was out there trying to play more consistently on the ball.
Yep.
Because they realized they didn't have a point guard and also was dealing with an ankle injury. Like I think that's the entirety. It should be the entirety of the conversation with Liam McNeely. I would guess he goes somewhere in the top like 24 or 23, somewhere like that. I will have him certainly in that range. I think right now I have him like right around, 18, 17, something like that. So I feel fine with Liam McNeely at this point.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good mid first round pick. And it's a little bit lower than like early in the year. I had him like top 10 and was really, whenever he was really knocking down shots and stuff like that. Some of that is, you start to see some of the other things. Some of that is you see other players and you see their upside and their potential. But yeah, I don't think that the slide that I've seen in some other places is going to be what I feel like it's going to be for him.
Well, and here's the other thing with McNeely too. I think we have a longer sample, if I remember correctly, of him hitting shots. I'm trying to see what the Montverde numbers were. I think they were quite high, if I remember correctly. I don't have them off the top of my list. I'll figure those out at some point. Okay. Someone asked about a specific trade. This trade is from Alex NZZZ, Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly in number 6 for Harrison Barnes in number 2.
Wait, say that
Any
again.
Thoughts there?
Say that again.
So I'll just pull it up on the screen while we're talking. Corey Kispert, Bilal Coulibaly in number 6 for Harrison Barnes and the number 2 pick.
No.
Yeah, I would just rather have Dylan.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. To me, I understand the idea like pairing Bilal and Wemby again. I think they're quite close, but yeah, to me, that's just
okay.
Dylan.
Yeah. And then you get Bilal on the wing, and we talked about Dylan being like a little bit redundant potentially and all of that. Okay. I understand. I was too dismissive. I apologize. I understand the idea here. I still don't like that value for me. I understand the idea though. I don't like the value though. I will take Dylan Harper still.
Okay. Let's get to some questions here on the feed that you guys have sent off since we've been going. From Sebastian Perez. My question is, if you are the Spurs, which center would you draft with number 14 or with number 38? So like the Spurs obviously do need to come away at some point, either in the offseason or in the draft with a backup center. I probably would not take one at 14. I would almost just rather, if I was them, I would rather move the pick out for like a future pick than just take like Thomas Sorber or something at 14. I like Sorber. Like I'm going to have Sorber like right in that range at the end of the day, but I would just rather, for them particularly, given that you have your long-term center of the future, I would just rather, get the future asset. I think at 38, if there are centers on the board that make sense, like if Ryan Kalkbrenner was to fall to 38, run and do it. If Max Reynaud was at 38, I think that's really interesting, and I would love to see them do that. I kind of hope he falls to 38 to see them do that. By the way,
he's not, because he's not falling past. I don't have a direct line to Trajan Langdon, but I hope somebody lets him know that if Maxime Reynaud is on the board at 37 and the Pistons don't take him, I will disagree with that decision very strongly.
Max Reynaud also played with Wemby, by the way, when they were young.
Okay,
with,
nice.
Nanterre's youth system. So like that's an interesting.
What about the guy we talked about pre-show, Niederhauser? Is that too high?
Niederhauser for them is fine. Yeah. Like it's right around the range, probably 38. It's probably a little bit higher for me, but like it's on the higher end for me. But yeah, like it's at 38 to me. It's not at 14. And, I think we've given a few names here at least where, they could look. Markovich isn't really a center to me. Maybe Janai Broom. I think Janai Broom probably has a good shot to get there. Someone along those lines. There are certainly names that you could look at, though.
Yeah.
Okay. From Phoenix Kane, I'm having trouble comparing this draft to others in the past. How many of these players would top the 2024 NBA draft? How do they compare to the top 5 in 2023? I think 2023 is just like a way better draft than this. Like Victor is better than Cooper. All due respect to Cooper, they're literally my top 2 prospects of the last decade. But I would rather have 2024, or I would rather have 2023 kind of across the board. And then you also with 2023 have all of Scoot, Amen, and Brandon Miller and Cam Whitmore, who all of whom are fantastic. Like, yeah, or Cam Whitmore is maybe something less than that, but like, yeah, I think that my top 6 in that class is like drastically better than the top 6 in 2024 or 2025.
Yeah, I agree, because like you said, Victor is still a better prospect than Cooper. Cooper would go number 2 in that. Scoot was a better prospect than Dylan Harper, right? As a prospect?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah.
Okay. But then
I had Scoot as a low end tier 1. I have Dylan like teetering on if I'm going to have him tier 1, tier 2.
Okay. I agree though. Because the other thing is like that next group of guys was all real interesting to me. And I spent a lot of time in that group because Detroit fell to 5. So you had Asar, Anthony Black, Koulibaly, Jarris Walker, Hendricks, Kaysen Wallace. Like that was an interesting group of players after that. So yeah, I think definitely 2023. And then, I mean, from last year's class, Cooper and Dylan are definitely 1 and 2 in that
not
class
even a
also.
question.
It's not even close.
Yeah. It's a good question. Like, I think VJ, and I have all of VJ, Con, Ace, Trey. Like those guys are all tier 3. They're in the same tier to me as Ricochet and Sar and those guys. I think you'd be picking and choosing basically between those guys.
Yeah. For me, I really liked Sar. I don't do the tiers the same way as you. Like my tiers are new every year, which is probably stupid because then I can't compare these things as well. I would have Sar number 3 in this draft, but I also I just really liked Alex Sar. So.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably, and then 2023 to 2025, the real difference is in like, I had all of Amen Thompson, Brandon Miller, I had Cam Whitmore as a tier 2 guy. Like I had a number of those guys. Like I don't really have any of those guys beyond Dylan Harper in this class.
Yeah.
So, okay. Can LeBaron Philon play the 1 in the NBA? I like his defense, but struggle to see it on offense for him outside of transition. Where are you on this, actually? This is a good question.
Yeah, so let me see. Was playing off the ball. I think he probably has to play on the ball. I like his touch. We always talk about that. I have the nuance of the dribble moves, the hesitations, all of that. I think maybe I would want to see some of the passing and the pick and roll handler and those type of things a little bit more. But I understand the question. I understand it, but like that's kind of what I look at him at is still an on-ball guy.
Yeah. I think he's probably going to have to play the point. I do like the way that he moves the ball off of the ball and like moves without the ball. I think he's really good at that stuff. I also love the defense, but in terms of like the passing, I liked the touch on lobs. I like the fact that he could throw live dribbles with either hand, at times, but like for the most part does gather to make his passes. Like, I think that's where he's going to have to show the stride is like really becoming like a live dribble passer as opposed to like consistently gathering before passing. I like his floater on drives. Like that's actually probably his most effective way to score right now. hit those at a 57% success rate, like those goofy little push shots he has.
Okay, so the thing, I'm starting to waver back the other way a little bit now because I don't have a lot of passing notes. And then the other thing is like the true dribble jumper stuff wasn't great, right? And so
that's what worries me.
Yeah, like, and then at the rim in the half court isn't like superb. And so now I'm starting to question, like, I don't know how much he actually scores it on the ball. And if I don't love his passing, maybe he is more of an off the ball player because he does relocate and move. And I think the unguarded catch and shoot numbers were actually like right under 40%. So maybe I'm talking myself back the other way now.
Yeah, this is why I have him a bit lower than most people do. I have him like in the 20s to 30s as opposed to, super high end prospect.
Agreed.
Okay. Who is the highest upside out of the Colin Murray Boyles, or no, this is Carter Bryant, out of the Carter Bryant, Nick Clifford, Cedric Coward group?
Who?
I would say I think the highest upside is probably Coward to me, actually.
My initial answer was going to be Coward.
I think that his ability to shoot from like versatile places on the court in inversatile ways is just more expansive than what Carter Bryant's is, even though I also really love Bryant on defense. I love Bryant almost like the name I've been using for him is like, I think he's going to be like Marvin Williams in the NBA, and people will hear that and, feel some type of way about it. But like, if you look at Marvin Williams's NBA career, Marvin Williams started 828 career games. Like that's a pretty good run if Carter Bryant starts for 10 years in the NBA.
Can I throw a name at you? You tell me how off it is. Because I always use this player when I talk about kind of like prototypical forwards for men. Jeremy Grant is always one whenever I think about this archetype of player. What is
Carter Bryant?
What is the difference between those guys?
I mean, Jeremy can dribble a little bit more than Carter can. Carter's handle worries me a little bit.
I agree with that. So is that the biggest limiter from like, what about like athleticism wise, what they would project defensively, like who they would guard? Like, do you think there's similarities there?
Jeremy's more athletic than Carter. Like Jeremy was like really, really explosive. Like, do you remember that run where he was in Oklahoma City where he was like playing center at times? Like, I think that was like maybe right before he got to Detroit, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like kind of different to me almost. Like, yeah, they're just like, they're different, I guess, to me. I can't really wrap my head around like the concerns there.
Yeah. And I'd say it's Jeremy Grant's always the archetype I use. Like whenever I just think about the role I watched him play in Detroit, like to me, he's like the best idea in terms of being able to be like this forward four-man or whatever. So then I always try to compare guys to him in terms of what can they do that he does, where are they lacking, etc. So, I think I'm with Coward as well. Then it would probably be Carter, then Neek, even though I'm a huge Neek fan.
Yeah, I think that's what I would say as well. And look, I'm going to have Carter and Coward both. Like Carter, I will have a little bit higher because I really like Carter on defense. Coward, I worry a little bit more about the defense, and the production against good teams is like a little bit concerning with Cedric. But I also am I adore Cedric Coward. I've been talking about him for months now, I feel like, and I had him as a top 35 guy coming into the season. So I don't know. I am a big Cedric Coward guy. Okay. Adutiero probably makes an impact in the league. That's a statement. Do you think there's any chance for him to shoot like 34 to 36% from three? I mean, there's a chance, but like, I would be surprised. I think if he hit that level, I would be very surprised if he hit that level, honestly.
Okay, so here's the pitch for it. Career 71% free throw shooter on 260 attempts. I think the synergy floater slash hook slash whatever shot, I think he was 21 of 33. So I guess you could say there's some touch there, even though I think his layups in the half court actually weren't great. Yeah, I don't know.
So here's what I've got on his jumper. Tierra was rarely able to take advantage of teams playing off of him as a shooter. Didn't look all that confident when he did. Only took 1 3-pointer per game in 72 games, made them at 28.4%. All of his threes were standstill threes. Most were very open. The actual mechanics don't look all that broken. I understand the idea of why people think this might work at some point. The actual release doesn't look that bad. It is out in front of his face, and it's a very low shooting pocket, which I think kind of gives me concerns against closeouts whenever teams things start moving fast, right? Yeah. And things start going at speed. I think the shot seems like arrhythmic between how he transitions his momentum from his lower half to his upper half. And I think it's kind of robotic at the top as well. It's not very fluid in terms of the way it comes out of his hand. More than that, you mentioned the layups. He made 47% of his layups this year. Yep. I get that he tries to make these difficult attempts. He'll try and go under a big's arm with a finger roll, inside hand sometimes. But he also doesn't have a lot of dexterity with his left hand either. I just worry that it's all kind of a house of cards that you're betting on with the jumper. It's not one issue. Yeah. With Yegor, I think that you can work with a lot of his problems as a shooter by fixing his base, which it seems is what they're working on right now. If you look at his pro day, the base just looked a lot stronger. And I think you could see that his energy transfer came up a lot smoother and he was able to get the shots, as opposed to him shooting shot puts because his left foot was too far behind his right foot whenever he would shoot. I think with Tierra, there's just a lot more to kind of fix there. And maybe he will. Shout out my Pittsburgh guy, baby. We want Adu Tierra to be a great player. I want nothing more than Adu Tierra to make the NBA. His family, they're rock stars. The dad is a coach in the area. I think the mom, if I remember correctly, may have been drafted in the WNBA. His sister is this incredible younger player who I think is going into her senior year, if I remember correctly. I would love a Pittsburgh basketball dynasty. Please give me the Pittsburgh basketball dynasty. I'm just not quite there on the shooting with Tierra.
Yeah, of course there's a chance. I guess if you ask me to bet, I would probably take the under on those numbers.
I think I would too. From general opinions right now, I mean, you honestly might have better feel for the general opinions than I do. Who do you see being the biggest risers and fallers come draft day from Callum?
Biggest risers on draft day.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to this 3 weeks ago was probably Cedric Howard, from where the public had him. Honestly, it was probably the answer a week ago. And then people figured it out. Biggest risers. I could see. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you go because you have an answer. I was gonna answer the faller.
I was gonna say I can see Berenger going higher than what people think.
Okay.
When NBA teams saw him this year, they really liked him. Really, really liked him a lot. If he went 12 or something like that, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying, I'm not making a case for it. I'm just saying if he went that high, it would not blow my mind.
Yeah.
Who was your answer on the faller?
Noah.
You think Essengay? Where is he right now? For people?
I consistently see Twitter draft big boards where he is consistently top 5. I've seen him.
Oh, but that's not real life though. In terms of where Like, there's no way John has him in the top 5, right? Like, there's no.
So you're talking.
Or like,
I was just talking like just the Twitter draft board. I thought that's why you asked me. Like, I try not to look at draft boards because I don't want it to skew mine. So
yeah.
So like
yeah, like
rookie. When we looked at rookie scale the other day,
yeah, that's the way to do this.
That was the first time I really looked to see where like consensus stuff. Like they have Noah at 12.
I think he could go that high. That wouldn't blow my mind. So they have Jace at 15. Jace is probably my answer there.
I was gonna say Essengay in terms of people who think he's top 7 or 8, and then my other answer was gonna be Jace. Another, I think, sneaky answer, we've outlined this process multiple times, is potentially Fears, depending on like
just the order.
Order of
like,
things.
The teams like Fears enough to where I think he'll go. I think someone would move up for Fears, would be my read.
Yeah.
Like if he started falling into like the 13 range or so, I think somebody would probably try and go up and get him. This is what my read is.
Is there a chance? So Danny Wolf is 20 on this. Is there a chance he, like, somebody falls in love with that archetype in the like 10 to 12 range?
I'd say his range is 13 to 23, so like it's within range to me. Jace at 15, like I actually wonder if that's within range, to be honest with you. Right now, like I'm not sure that I would range his draft status that way.
Got you.
Let's see.
Okay, so
go ahead.
I was gonna ask you to tell me, like, guys, the person with the most likely chance to be a first round pick that's outside of this consensus top 30.
Okay.
Nope, we're gonna do 35.
Yeah, because Coward is at 30 right now.
Phylon, Tierro's 30, and Cockbrenner's at 32. Okay, so do you have it on the screen? I'll say something.
I do. I'm looking at it.
For the listeners, as you think, Broom, Cam Jones, Pettiford, Markovich, Alex Tui, Chaz Lanier, Proctor, Condon, Miles Bird.
Look, if Pettiford is in the draft, I think he's going in the first round. Like I think that's the only way that he would stay in. So like that's probably the answer. I might pick Proctor here. Like somebody just like really likes the shooting and defense and he does well in workouts maybe, but like I think there is like a pretty big drop off once you hit a certain point in this class. I think that it is like probably right around that 35 mark though.
Condon is another one that I don't know about. Well, ESPN I think has him high but Condon is another one where I consistently see in the late first round for big boards and mocks and stuff that just show up on my feed. So
I think probably more likely to go back if you made me guess right now.
Yeah. I mean, to be clear, I do not have him in that range, but
yeah, I don't either for what it's worth. Okay. Where's Trey Johnson on your board? And do you think his weaknesses can significantly affect his overall outcome? I'll answer where I have him on my board first. I'm going to have him somewhere 3 to 6. I would guess realistically probably 3 to 5. Right now I have him at 3. I go back and forth. It's either gonna. My guess is it's either 3 or 4. Honestly, is where I have him. It'll go back and forth between him and Con.
Yeah, I have him at 5 right now in this same tier of players that we've talked about the entire time. Do you think his weaknesses can significantly affect his overall outcome? High level role player to 9th, 10th in a rotation. Listen, I think if Trey Johnson accepts this role as an off ball shot maker, we talked about like why I think we both liked the thought of him in Utah in terms of like how they would use him and stuff. I think he could be really, really effective. I think if Trey Johnson ends up in a situation or wants to be a primary on ball, create his own shot, I think that could be a real struggle because I don't believe in that aspect of his game as much. And so like that would, to me, that's the weakness is role recognition and his acceptance. If he accepts it, I think he ends up being a really high level option for whoever drafts him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that he will at least be like a 6th or 7th man.
Sure.
I don't think he like falls to like 9th or 10th in a rotation. The shooting is too good, and he's too hard of a worker, frankly, is the piece of this. Like, I'd be pretty staggered if he fell to like a 9th or 10th man situation. He's just too like serious of an individual. Like, he cares too much about this, and the shooting is just too high level off of movement already. Like, I think that he would be, I don't think he'll fall that low at the end of the day. I do think there are outcomes where he is like a, 4th or 6th man in terms of, being a overall option, like a Malik Beasley type player, a bigger Malik Beasley basically. But I do really think that, I think there is like a real ceiling too as a scorer. If we start to see him like really get to a point where he can, score at the rim and do some things, I'm a little bit skeptical of all that stuff coming together. But I like Trey Johnson enough to where I don't think that he'll fall to like 9th or 10th man status.
I agree.
Okay. Where is Hansen Yang on your draft boards?
I just had somebody ask me about this earlier. I have him in the 2nd round. I think he's really interesting as like a passer, as a big, and the things he does in regards to that. I was big. I think I took him in the 1st round in our like preseason mock draft. I think it was what NBA team did they scrimmage? Or in the preseason, but whoever it was, I was a little bit nervous.
Well, it was summer league. Like, they played some summer league teams
summer league.
Summer.
I think I got the movement just makes me really nervous, Sam.
Yeah. I also think he is somebody that's like a very, very high waist. And that worries me in terms of him being able to like get to any sort of spot on the court regularly against strength. I have him as like a clear like 2nd round. Let's take a flyer on this and see if it works guy. I'm still kind of working through the draft guide on a few 2nd rounders, but I would guess that Yang will be in the 40s somewhere for me, 40s to like early 50s.
Yep. That's what I haven't like, I've said this multiple times, so I'm sorry for being repetitive, but I haven't fully hashed out like my 2nd round and all of that until I just see, I feel good about guys being in that tier, and then I'll hash out the official rankings. I'll go back and rewatch some stuff once we see who's staying in and who's not.
Yeah. So Yang, just like not much of a shooter right now, 37% on mid-range jumpers, 26 on catch and shoot threes. Everything's very slow in terms of his process too. Like, he's a pretty like solid screener by and large, but like if he catches out high, he is like holding and stopping and like, kind of trying to do things kind of himself a little bit. Like, there's nothing quick about the process. Really doesn't move well away from the rim. Like, that's going to be a significant problem for him. I didn't like the pick and roll defense either. I thought he got caught in no man's land all the time. Just like between the ball handler and the big. I thought he was quite hoppy and like tries to like use that to overcompensate for his lack of foot speed. Didn't really use his angles well, I didn't think, in terms of his length, just because of how slow-footed he was. And then the lack of strength was a real issue for me. I like the idea of the passing.
Yeah.
And I like that he's like a long strider for like, DHO denials. And, if he can reject and like get to the rim, like that's some really like fun stuff to me. And he does have like real touch around the basket. Although I will note, like, people that are going to use the numbers, like 69% of his layups, 75% from the rim. The CBA is like absolutely abysmal defensive league. Just like be aware of that when you start like looking into these numbers.
Yep.
Okay. We've talked a bit about Max Reynaud. Like, you're a little bit higher. I think I have Max right now. Where do I have Max? 33 right now. So like I'm like right at the borderline of the 1st round, which I was a little bit surprised that I ended up there, but that's from Brian. Like, I assume you have him in that ballpark.
Yeah, we're same range, same tier. Nothing crazy.
Who's the best center in this draft in terms of stretching the floor on offense and protecting the rim on defense?
Is there anybody that does both?
Kalkbrenner does both. I think the answer is probably Maluach is like the highest upside that could theoretically make it work, but I don't really buy the shot, and I don't think you do either, in the way to where like he would ever get guarded out there, right?
I wanted to buy the shot so bad. Like, you won't find somebody who wanted this to be this, and like I wanted it so much.
Yeah. The answer to me is probably Kalkbrenner. And I think we're all underestimating the level to which there is a real shot that Kalkbrenner goes in the first round, by the way.
Yeah. I'm a little lower on him, but I love him in the second round is what I'll say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I will probably have Kalkbrenner like, I don't know where it'll be, like 28 to 32 or something. But yeah, I like Ryan enough to where I think it's just a really valuable skill set. Like, I actually do think he can shoot, and he's like a real rim protector. Someone asked, is there a chance for him to become Brook Lopez? Not quite that, because he's not that strong. Like, he does, again, high hips, like higher center of gravity. That is an issue. But I think that like he can become like a backup version of Brook Lopez, at least. Like, the name we've been using the whole year is Luke Cornett, and Luke Cornett's been freaking amazing this year.
Sure. Yeah, I have him solid backup big, and then the upside is the jumper. So 100%. And I will admit, it looks like it has potential. There are numbers that are slightly interesting. Free throw percentage just interesting. Like, I understand it. So I'm cool. I understand. I understand it. That's where I'll say.
Someone asked, what's the word on Rocco Zikarsky? Is he rising? Looked okay at the combine. I mean, he didn't do anything at the combine. Like, didn't play 5-on-5. Like, I guess he shot it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, he'll go somewhere in the second round is the answer.
Yeah.
I don't know where. He'll go somewhere in the second round, though, is my read.
A lot of bigs we're talking about here in the second round.
A lot of bigs in the second round. I think that's right. Like, that's where we're kind of setting up. And then this might be the last question here. What's the scoop on Yannick Niederhauser? Looks good, and the measurements are crazy. Yeah, like if you watch the Niederhauser tape, it's like a little bit less impressive athletically than what the athleticism says. I think you agree with that, Bryce.
I will read my quick notes on both of these points. And I want to be clear, I came away liking his game. Ridiculous combine measurements and the testing. Does not use length as much as he could. So, like, defensively at the rim is really good, but in other situations, his hands are often down. He's not like super active with them and all of that. And I just, like, I didn't think on film he moved as well. Like, there were flashes. Like, he had this sick, like, posted up out of a ball screen, caught, spun baseline, reverse dunk. And I was like, okay, that was really good. But I don't think the athleticism popped as much as what I expected after the combine numbers.
Yeah, like he's in the John Tonje, Micah Peavy, Elijah Martin zone for me more than like a real, like, I don't think he's a first round pick at all. I think he's okay, let's get this guy into our system, see if maybe we can like access the athleticism a little bit more. But like, part of this is that he is like 250, like he's a big dude, and like he plays a little bit heavier in, traffic, I feel like.
Yeah, no,
like
I'm with.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I'm with you there. Like, it just didn't. It didn't move as fluidly as I thought. Like I said, I think some of the stuff, the ball screen stuff, post position, catch and finish. I brought up with you was some of the bobble catches that make me nervous. Yeah. Rebounding, just catching the ball. Like, he missed some finish opportunities because of that. And then defensively, I loved what he did at the rim. I think in the game I watched, he like had 4 or 5 blocks, but he gave up a ton of points on true post-ups and stretch threes. I just didn't think his awareness was always super, super great.
Yeah. Here's the last question that I want to finish on, actually, and this is a Twitter question. Does the trend of college athletes staying longer due to NIL money ultimately benefit NBA front offices by providing more data for draft decisions, or does it diminish opportunities to find undervalued talent later in the draft? From RDR 828. I love this question so much.
Yeah, this
is a conversation that I'm having all the time with NBA people right now, by the way.
I mean, so I do think it gives them more data. And so in that way, I think in general, more data should mean better decisions. What I'm struggling with now is, does it completely diminish the opportunity to find undervalued talent? I'm trying to decide on that. I mean, I guess the thing is, like, Austin Reeves played how many years of college basketball and still was going to be a second round pick that ended up as an undrafted free agent, right? So, you can still find these guys even if they are 3-4 year players.
I think that it does ultimately help more than anything else, because I think that people overvalue and over-index on the idea of getting later steals and how valuable those things are, because I think people like to be first to like find something, right? I think people like to, feel like they got one over on somebody, right? Got one over on, the mainstream consensus. Like, your opinion was right and other people's was wrong, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like we went through in the 2023 draft, right? So few of these guys end up being relevant. You know what I mean? Like, they just do. You go back through 2022, Nembhard goes 31st overall. Jalen Williams goes 34th to Oklahoma City, the Arkansas big, not J-Dub. Max Christie goes 35. Beyond 35, I mean, Jaden Hardy has gotten another deal. I have no idea if he's going to be a real valuable NBA player. Ryan Rollins was like somewhat useful for Milwaukee, but he's like second stop already. So like, I would argue that Golden State did not really experience much value from Ryan Rollins. Vince Williams, has turned into something solid at 47, which is fine. Guy Santos for the Warriors at 55, like ninth man, can sort of play some minutes here and there. There's just not like a lot of value, right? Like it's not like these guys are really coming in and, changing outside of the top 35. Like, they're not really changing the paradigm. Like, you might get one per year, like a Tamani Kamara that does it outside of the top 35. So 2021, Deuce McBride goes 36. Like, might as well include him there. Ayo Dosunmu goes 38, which was like a little bit of a surprise, but that's probably a win getting him at, it's definitely a win getting him at 38, but like it's low enough to where it's worth discussing. Jared Butler goes 40. I think Jared Butler is going to play in the NBA for a while, but like, again, multiple stops took him some time. Delano Banton at 46 by Toronto was not very valuable for Toronto, right? We're now in Portland. Somewhat valuable player, like useful player. Then you go through, like BJ Boston, Luka Garza, Charles Bassey, Sandro. You get to Aaron Wiggins. Like, Aaron Wiggins at 55 is the win probably of like the 2021 draft. It's so rare. And then 2020, right? You go through that draft. Trey Jones at 41 was like a good like innings eater, backup point guard. Nick Richards, I guess they got 3 extra second round picks for him, so that's useful. After that, not really anybody else. Isaiah Joe, but again, that's second stop. 76ers gave up on him early. A lot of these guys you have to give up on early at the end of the day because you can't keep holding the roster spot.
Yeah.
Sam Merrill at 60, the Pelicans or Milwaukee like couldn't hang on to him forever, and then he goes to Sacramento, and then he goes to Cleveland, right? So a lot of these guys that go in the second, they're just such long prospects to like, have to play out the string on. They're just like not ready for it at the end of the day. So even when you do hit on one, the odds are you might be hitting on somebody that you're waiting on. And the next team, the second team, gets the benefit.
Well, and that's what, like, I'm trying to look at like some of just the last two drafts, and who knows what these guys' careers end up with, but like NBA teams got 4 years to evaluate Tamani Kamara, and he still ended up at 55, right? So, like, I guess to answer the second part of the question, Tamani still slipped and was a 4-year guy for teams to evaluate. Jalen Wells is a little bit different, right? Because of the Sonoma State to Washington State.
Sure.
But, you know, AJ Mitchell, I'm just looking at guys in this last class that went in the second round that we think are going to be real NBA players. You know, 3 years at Santa Barbara. Jamal Shed, who played almost 1,500 minutes for Toronto this year, excuse me. And I, you know, 4-year player at Houston. I think those guys are still going to be there. Like, I think undervalued players will still be there to be found, even if they are 3-4 year guys. We've seen it consistently happen. And I want to touch real quick on something you said. I've been finding the right time to bring this up. To the everybody wants to be right, everybody wants to be the first. This is my personal experience. So this is for anybody out there who's trying to do it a different way. Guys, I'm not on Game Theory Podcast because I got anything right. Sam Vecenie didn't call me up and say, you know what, Bryce? You want to come be my co-host because you thought Paolo Banchero was the number 1 pick in whatever draft? Like, we never had those conversations. I don't want to speak for Sam, but it's because the first time we talked, I listened, we built a relationship, and I think he could probably tell I worked really, really hard and was really passionate. I've also got opportunities outside of the media realm, and none of those came from quote unquote being right on a player either. They came from genuine relationships and showing people that I work really, really hard at what I do. And because everybody's going to miss no matter what. So if you're out there like, oh, I got to prove that I'm right, I don't think you do. And if you're one of those that's like not into that, you'll be fine. Like, you'll find your path without having to be right or be first.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I kind of, I guess, tweeted obliquely about this yesterday. You know, I don't want to take shots at anybody.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that like the draft community in general is like very, you know, strongly thriving, and, you know, that people give opinions, and that like people really, you know, try and do some work and like think about it. Cause like, look, like that's kind of what I did. That's what you did, right? Like, you know, we started as these like kind of randoms that were just doing things. So like, I'm all for people doing that. The thing I will say is like, there's a lot of certainty in the draft space, where people feel like, you know, this guy's definitely going to return top 5 value. This guy's going to do this. This guy's going to do this. Like, guys, maybe this is just me, you know, figuring this out because I'm older now, I guess. Like, you know, I turned 35 last month. Like,
so old, Sam.
I know, right? But I've been doing this for 10 years now, professionally, right? And I think I'm pretty good at this. Like, most NBA people I talk to think I'm pretty good at this, right? I don't think I'm great at this by any, like, I think I'm never going to get anything right. Like, or like never going to get everything right is my point. It's just never going to happen. I can feel some type of way about, like, you know, I'm going to have Ace Bailey probably at like 6 or so on my board this year, but I'm going to have him the same tier as the guy I have number 3, right? Like, maybe Ace Bailey turns into, you know, the Paul George that he sees in the world, right? Or maybe he's going to turn into Cam Reddish. Like, I don't know. But the thing that is important here is we're all evaluating freaking teenagers who are all going to like become totally different human beings by the time that they're 24. You know what I mean? Like, even just like from their brain is going to develop more perspective, right? And like, I'm mad that I brought up Ace, like, when considering this, because like there's going to be a lot of discussion about Ace, but like, you know, it goes the same with any prospect. These guys, like, they're all just going to mature and develop and become like, you know, different people. Like, I was talking to a trainer about a former, let's call him lottery pick, I'm trying to keep it a little bit vague, who thought he was like amazing when he got to the NBA and like had some success here and there, but like, was hit or miss and is on like the borderline of, or, was on the borderline of the NBA when I had this conversation a while ago. Right. And the thing that he recognized going from, entering the NBA when he was 19, 20 years old to now, which is like a few years into his career, is like, man, like I had no idea how to work. Right. Like I had no idea like what it took. Right. People are going to like figure that out when they're 25 at the end of the day. They're going to learn what it takes. You're going to become more professional. You're going to become more intelligent about the way that you attack things. Most people will, at least. Maybe not everybody, but most people will. With NBA teams, you're trying to like with draft evaluations for me, and maybe people think about this differently, and I understand that if they do, but like you're thinking about it like in terms of like what the value is that you're going to bring to the team that drafts you.
Yep.
Right. How quickly can you bring that value? How fast can you actually achieve your potential? And what is your upside to what is the intersection of the upside versus how long teams are actually going to be willing to put up with you not being very good yet by NBA standards, frankly, because most rookies, most teenagers hitting the NBA are not very good when they hit the NBA, right? Any other profession, you can feel that way too, right? And this goes for any other profession as well. Like as a teenager, I had no idea how to work probably, comparatively to now when like I have a system for like how I go about things, right? And my brain is more developed in how I think about things. So I say this to say that like there's never any certainty in this process. Like I don't think it's a crapshoot. Like I will hear people say that too. I do not think it's a crapshoot. I think that there are real things that you can work toward to try to figure out in order to make better informed bets on the right kind of people and the right kind of players. But by and large, you are still making bets. And the key is having the right processes in place to make the right kinds of bets, in my opinion. Like if I have Ace Bailey at number 6 in this draft, and he goes 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th overall or whatever, it ends up being like the next Cam Reddish or whatever, right? I'm not going to think that that was a bad ranking, because at the end of the day, you're making an informed bet on a player's upside versus his downside, and you're trying to take a guess on what that player can be, right? Yeah. It's really a bet more than anything. So I'm not going to think less of that if it's wrong. Like I'm not going to, like if Common Maluach becomes a superstar and I had him at 12, like, I'll look at that and go, okay, like what did I miss here? Mm-hmm. Well, like Maluach is like an amazing kid, first and foremost. Like literally everybody says that, like everybody I've talked to about him, and I've talked to many people about him at this point, like that'll probably be where it comes from, the insatiable work ethic, right? Like that's probably like many years ago. I think the first year I did this was Rudy Gobert's year. And like, that's what I missed in Rudy. And I'll say that all the time. Like I miss Rudy Gobert's like crazy work ethic more than anything. So the key in terms of figuring out what your evaluation process is just your process in figuring out the information that you need to make informed, rational bets really on these players. And if they're good or if they're, whether or not they turn out right or wrong, it's the same with like the poker table, right? Like if I get my money in at 80%, I'm still going to bust 20% of the time. Mm-hmm. Right. Like if I get in with, literally, I think that's like what the numbers are for aces against ace king, right? I think it's like right around like 82-18 or so, right? Like if you get your money in with aces versus ace king, depending on the suits, it's going to be somewhere between, I think like 81 to 84% of the time you're going to win. And you know what? Like you're still going to lose 17% of the time. So you're still going to get them wrong at the end of the day. So I look at it that way in terms of just like make sure the process is right. That's ultimately the key. If your process is right and the way you're evaluating things is right and you're thinking about it that way, that's what's ultimately important. And again, that's what I ultimately saw in Bryce. Like I knew the process was right when in how he was thinking about things. And obviously why I brought him in.
Yeah, that's just felt like this was an opportunity to go ahead and throw that out. So, and I know hopefully people appreciate us spending some time on it, because I know we do get a lot of what advice would you give to somebody trying to, probably be more Sam Vecenie than me, because obviously you do this full time. I still teach middle school science, but it is like, I think people wonder a lot of times, and I understand why people want to go I guarantee this player is going to be that, because that gets likes and retweets and quote tweets and stuff like that. And it's just like, it can happen without that is my thing. And like you said, especially if you can show your process, which involves your work ethic and your personality and your relationship building, you have just as good a chance as the person that said, oh, Jalen Wells was going to be all rookie. I don't know if there's somebody out there. If you did, good for you. Like, congrats. But it's not always about being right. I'm a process person. I love that you brought that up. Have the right process.
That's right. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky. I actually do have something new coming over on the Motor City Hoops Substack, probably pretty Pistons related. So unless you're a Pistons fan, you may not want to check it out. But if you are, go check it out. I put out a breakdown of the Game 6 defensive effort from the Knicks over on Knicks Film School with our guy GMAC. I will have a Pacers transition offense preview coming, I believe, on Tuesday over on the YouTube over there. Have got some good responses and feedback on those video breakdowns. So check those out. Pistons Pulse podcast. Otherwise, the Game Theory podcast with the Sam Vecenie.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. This week is going to be a pretty heavy draft guide week for me. I'm not sure how much I will write, frankly. Depends on like what I find out and like if I get some interesting things worth writing. But I am like trying to lock in the draft guide this week is basically the goal. I have 6 completely finalized profiles now that we have measurements and everything like that. That will explode up to like 20 hopefully by the end of the day, and will hopefully kind of continue to blossom and bloom. I for what it's worth, I have like well over 50 like mostly done profiles at this point as well. So I'm very excited about that. I am hoping that we will be locked in on that. Early June is the hopeful publication date for draft guide. I don't have a date on it. Don't ask. We're hoping for early June. That's the goal here, if we can get there. So hopefully I can get it done this week in terms of like all the back end stuff where our team at The Athletic can get things together. I'm really, really excited to share it with you guys this year. Word count right now, just for the record, is up to 120,000, which is great. We're going to be right in range where it always is. I appreciate all you guys immensely. Thank you for coming to hang out. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We are up to 34,500 of you. That is absolutely amazing. That's unbelievable. I appreciate all you guys immensely for coming through and for hanging out with us. We will be back. It's a good question, Bryce, because we have to start recording off-season previews. I don't know if the next time you hear us we'll be doing an off-season preview or if it will be doing a show on Wednesday potentially for Knicks Pacers. Maybe that's the move. Maybe we do Knicks Pacers because that'll be an early start time for you, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I was just telling somebody like, I'm so glad we got through the meat of the playoffs because my sleep schedule was wearing down and now I'm out of school. School's over here for me. So I'm on my summer break and we get early playoff times compared to what we were doing. I mean, even a 7:30 start time is like, oh, we're recording by 10. This is beautiful. So I think
Yeah.
one of them is like 7, one of them 7:30. So it's all good.
Yeah. So my guess is that Wednesday is the next time you will get a live show from Bryce and I. We will go through and talk about the first 2 games of each Knicks, Pacers, and Thunder Wolves. That is the plan right now. And then after that, or before that, potentially, we will have off-season previews starting at some point. So keep it locked in. Until next time, we'll talk soon.